morning, everyone. I can feel it's a good day. So very nice to be here with you, Ray, today.
Thank you for having me.
Very exciting.
It's great to be here.
I am the CEO of Halborn, newly appointed. I have a background more in the classical IT and classical cybersecurity space, but could not be more excited to be now in that specific week, in those specific days, in this new space of DLT and blockchain. So let's start by talking about you, Ray, in fact. Can you tell us a little bit about you, about your role as a first introduction?
Yeah, and again, it's exciting to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm Sharif-Askary. I lead product and research at Grayscale Investments. I have been at Grayscale for about 7 years now, which is a very long time in crypto. And before that, I worked for an investment bank doing leveraged finance, so LBO, syndicated debt. And I joined Grayscale in 2018 when it was very small, and it's been such an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful to have gotten to help be a part of its growth.
So why crypto in the first place?
It's a great question. So back in 2017, 2018, I was, I think financial markets capital markets, investing has always been something that I've been really interested in. And so that was kind of an interesting time in the market, and I heard about it. I started reading about it and investing my own money, and I worked at an investment bank. So any of you who work at banks probably know that there's a lot of restrictions around buying investment products, especially single name assets in your personal account. But crypto at the time was so new that we were allowed to do whatever we want. So that was really fun for me. I started investing in crypto. I started getting excited about it. And at the same time, I'd been at the bank for 10 years. I'd had a great trajectory. I was really grateful for everything I'd learned. And I was ready to do something more entrepreneurial. I wanted to help to build something, because I think sometimes the sell side for me can feel like a zero-sum game. So I met the Grayscale team, call it, April, May 2018. And I was so impressed with what they had built and with my interest in crypto. They were so clearly the market leader. And, everyone thought I was crazy. I was taking a big risk. I was leaving this established industry to go to crypto. But I knew that if I was going to do that, Grayscale was where I wanted to be. And again, it's been amazing. When I joined Grayscale, it was about 5 people. So it's been really a fun journey.
So 5 people, that's impressive, because I was just reading recently an article in the Financial Times. You have the second largest ETF on Bitcoin.
We do. It's been a long...
From 5 people to the second largest ETF.
Yeah, it's been...
How about that?
It's been really a journey.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So, so let's speak about that journey. So what is it you do exactly at Grayscale, and what is your contribution to that ETFs, that drive, and that market leadership? Because we can really speak about market leadership.
Yeah, definitely. So I think when you think about, the world we live in today, we have Bitcoin, Ethereum, ETFs. It's becoming really something that's part of, the mainstream financial investing infrastructure, so to speak. And so from my perspective as head of product and as head of research, I'm continuing, I'm working on the education to bridge crypto back to TradFi. And so when we think about the massive advised markets that are now starting to access this asset class, and so from a research perspective, we're thinking about the tools and frameworks to think about crypto in the context of traditional investing. So for instance, we have Zach Pandel, who maybe you guys have heard him speak or read some of his work. He's our macroeconomist, and he's really on the pulse of taking what's going on, for instance, in from a monetary policy perspective. What's the Fed doing? And thinking about the implications on Bitcoin and the crypto markets. We're basically framing this new asset class in ways that traditional investors think about it. Another example would be crypto sectors, which is a comprehensive taxonomy we've made to classify digital assets into 5 groups based on their investable exposure and the function of the protocol. And that's so when we have the ability then to think about these different sectors, so to speak, not dissimilar from the GICs when we're thinking about what's going on in the crypto market. And then from a product perspective, I'm doing something similar in respect, again, to building those bridges. So I'm taking crypto investing, which is, at the end of the day, a digital bearer asset, and we're putting that back into vehicles that people are used to investing. So, you can buy Grayscale products in your brokerage account, in tax-advantaged accounts, and ultimately we're bridging that, bridging crypto exposure and ownership back into familiar vehicles that investors are used to owning and have owned for many decades. And then I'm also trying to look around the corner in terms of investable opportunities, compelling exposures, so that investors don't have to. So when we think about asset selection, we're thinking about, again, some of these very, age-old criteria that investors have used. So we think about thematic tailwinds. We think about product market fit, is something a market leader. We're thinking about, at the same time, we're thinking about on-chain metrics, transaction growth in wallet addresses. We are leveraging, the kind of relative value metrics that one might see in traditional investing, like EV to EBITDA, to think about intrinsic value of a blockchain and of a protocol, and tying that back to its market cap.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I have a question about people. So you have plenty of former colleagues in the traditional banking environment, okay? And you have left them, 7 years ago? So 7 years ago, you moved to the bright side of the force, let's call it in that way. Have you seen their evolution over time? What can you say about their evolution over time when you were speaking about what you are doing at Grayscale?
Yeah, so in the beginning, they were sad to see me go. I was sad to leave them. They were.
What the hell is she doing?
They were hesitant. They were like, what are you doing? I'm kind of worried. And at the same time, simultaneously, I think the ones amongst them who were wiser thought, you know what, like you're kind of young still, and this is going to be like a really compelling opportunity for you. And we're going to see, because we had the CNBC screens on the desk. And so they're like, that's going to be like you guys up there. And over time, they start asking questions. They start seeing headlines. They start wondering, first they're asking about Bitcoin. Then they're asking about some NFT. Then your little sister's like, hey, I need to buy a piece of the metaverse. So that's been really fun. And then you see a lot of them also start to transition over. They, some of the folks that were skeptical a few years back are now calling and they're like, hey, I'd love to, I saw this job opening at Grayscale, or I'm evaluating this opportunity. What do you think? So that's been really fun to be able to, be helpful there and have those conversations.
So you are becoming a trusted advisor for them for that move to the bright side. So that's interesting what you say, because I think it leads us a little bit to the headlines, okay, and the transformation that is happening in this year. So not only do we have a new administration, but we have MiCA on the EU market as well. So there is plenty of, I would say, a new momentum. How do you see that happening, and how do you see the role of Grayscale bridging some of the gaps?
Yeah, so I think undeniably we've sort of entered into a new world order, and the future is necessarily uncertain. We saw the executive order yesterday. Mm-hmm. I think it's encouraging to think about a world where we have more regulatory clarity. And I think it's still very early. We're very early into this administration. So, we, for our part, are going to continue to watch. We're going to continue to engage with regulators and, continue to try to deliver value for investors.
So, and in that topic, without drilling down too much, but what do you think about the attitude of that administration with regard to CBDC and stable coin? Does that trigger some thought for you?
I think it's just early. I think it's still too early to really reach any kind of meaningful conclusions.
Yeah. So I also believe that, one thing is crypto, when we speak about the technology, but plenty of other components are playing a big role. So I see for traditional banking environment, gain in efficiency and effectiveness. So access to new retail customer, for instance, thanks to on-chain issuance and trading of equity, but also cross-border payment, and also, I would say, some of the core processes of the banks that could change massively. Do you see a role for Grayscale in that space?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that because you mentioned cross-border payments, accessibility, and for me, those are two themes that I've been excited about. Again, one way that, decentralized finance, historically borrowing and lending has been really limited to folks who have certain amount of resources, and now you have a world where it's distributed, decentralized, it's open, it's transparent. So that's something I'm really excited about. And again, when you think about it in the context of, for instance, decentralized borrowing and lending, I was around in 2022 where we had kind of a credit crunch, literally within crypto, because it was an insular system with centralized lenders. And I think about centralized lending and I think about decentralized lending during that time. And, decentralized protocols, lending protocols, you don't have that subjectivity to human error and to bias. You have loans that are over-collateralized and as such are more insulated from exogenous, macro shocks to the system. So that's DeFi, and that's, we've created some products like the Grayscale Aave Trust, for instance, that are focused on that and give investors exposure to that. And then, cross-border payments is, for me, part of the broader just transforming traditional finance. So you think of, for instance, an XRP, you think of other protocols like that. So thematically, I think that there's a real opportunity for crypto to take the financial system, the existing incumbent financial infrastructure, and make it more and optimize it to make it better, more efficient, faster, and also more egalitarian. And I'd like to continue to educate investors about that and continue to create ways for them to get exposure to that.
Yeah, we also believe at Halborn there is a big efficiency gain to just deploy those technologies. Again, that's independently of cryptos, and that's a confusion in many minds, But we also believe that what we call the attack surface in our slang is becoming bigger, and also the risk with lateral move with threat actor is becoming massive, because when you will have big guys like pension funds making massive investment, we'd better be ready. So we promote what we call secure by design, so that people think upfront about cybersecurity when they deploy any sort of DLT solution. Does that speak to you?
Yeah, look, cybersecurity is really important. I know that Nora from my team, our Chief Information Security Officer, is going to be speaking later. Security is interesting because when we think about, one of the things that I'm excited about thematically is also just, new, scalable, fast, layer one blockchain. So I think that if you're going to see the mass adoption that people hope and expect to see, user interface, scalability are meaningful stepping stones to that. And, there's this concept, perhaps you've heard of it, perhaps many of you have heard of it, called the blockchain trilemma, which means that, you have this triangle, and on one point is scalability, security, and decentralization. And that the idea there is that, there is a challenge to optimize across all those three vectors. So that's something I'm really excited to see some of these new layer one blockchains, like the Swiss of the world, for instance, continue to iterate on speed and scalability, and while also solving, for security. But I think that's one of the fundamental, philosophical problems within the development of decentralized blockchains.
Yeah, I agree, and that Ethereum statement has been really shaping the way people think about it moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that that's just one of the natural beauty of public blockchains is that you have this embedded incentive mechanism, which is securing the blockchain. And I think that's kind of one of the coolest innovation, so to speak, is just that kind of relying on rational economic actors to act in their own interest and in doing so secure a blockchain.
Right, I agree. So my last question on that would be the following. We see some banks going definitely into the direction of using public blockchain, and some going very strongly into the direction of deploying permission private blockchain. Any thought on that?
So I think ultimately I've been in this space long enough that I think there's a place for enterprise blockchains. I think there's a lot to be gained from implementing that technology. And again, I think that the real, philosophically, the ethos and the real beauty of blockchain technology is, again, that decentralized nature, and that public blockchains are decentralized and those incentive mechanisms. I think that that's really important. So I think there's certainly a place for both, but I think part of what makes it work is the decentralization.
Which is creating a lot of headaches to the GRC and IT security team of our bankers, right?
Yeah, we're definitely on the sort of feels like an inflection point.
Exactly.
A paradigm shift.
Anything big from Grayscale in 2025? That would be my last question.
Yes, I think there'll be a lot of big things. I mean, look, from a product development perspective, we're going to keep up the momentum. Thematically, again, I continue to be really excited and encouraged by just again, better user interface, better scalability as a stepping stone to adoption. We're seeing, abstraction away on chain, for instance, where folks can literally use email to log into their wallets, which is, a huge step, and that's something that SWE is doing. I think that we're also living in a world now where with proof-of-stake blockchains, with staking, crypto is now income producing, and that's a new world order that I think really changes the nature of crypto as an asset class. So that's something I'm watching. That's something that I'm excited to potentially build around. We have a staking fund today, in fact, that's actively managed. And I think from a research perspective, we're excited about keeping a pulse on everything that's to come. We've done some things recently around that I recommend folks check out on our website, grayscale.com, about where we are in the cycle, for instance, about the role of AI and AI agents. So I think, and also thinking about as we see more institutions that we're talking about, we're having a lot more conversations that are beyond like, hey, should I buy Bitcoin? But rather, how do I think about a diversified crypto portfolio in the context of my broader allocation regime? And, we've put out a piece on that around crypto and portfolios. So I'm really excited for what's to come this year.
Thank you so much. And thanks for being such a good partner, because you made that even possible as well as Grayscale. That was great. Thank you, Ray. Thank you very much for your attention, all.